Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. And today we have Erin Wilkins back with us. She is now our most featured guest host, and we just love having her. And welcome, Erin. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. You see, I'm outside. I think all of our other podcasts, I was complaining about winter weather. So
Right. Let me get rid of this background. I only do it just for the opening because it drives me crazy. There we go. Now you get to see my boring office, but at least it's a realistic image rather than the coming and going thing. I don't know. They got to figure that out, or I need a better camera or something. I don't know. But anyways, well, I'd rather be where you are right now than where I am right now. I always like being outdoors when I can. So you're in southern Idaho, and apparently the winter has finally left.
it has finally left. Things are blooming. My bees behind me are very happy, and yep, things are moving along.
Tell us about your bees. I think that as healthy living goes, there's probably very few creatures that are as important to the health of not only us, but the planet as these little winged creatures that we call honeybees, or any bees really. And they're just so important, and you've decided to tend some yourself. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we didn't have the best of luck. The winter was so cold last year, so we lost our bee colony. But we just reintroduced a new queen and about 3,000 bees.
Wow.
And last year we got about 6 gallons of honey out of just the one hive. So I'm hoping for 6 to 10 gallons again this year.
Yes.
So
yeah. What do you do with the honey?
We keep it to use, in place of sugar and sweeteners. And then I have a lot of clients that will buy it for allergies.
Oh, nice.
Local honey is the best thing to really treat allergies with, because the bees will, touch on everything around, and really helps with sleep. So I have quite a few clients that get it for that as well.
Fantastic. And what do you do? Do you filter it, or you just let it be just straight out? Like, when people don't realize, when honey comes out of a beehive, it's all full of stuff. And there's honeycomb and wax and baby bee parts and just all sorts of stuff in that honey. And how do you get it out without all the extra stuff?
So the 2 top layers on the hive there's a screen so that the queen can't get up there. So all of the honey that we kept won't have baby bees or anything in them.
Okay.
So if people are against eating insects, then that part's taken out of the equation.
Right.
Then we just spin it out, and then we do, I put it through just a sieve just to get the wax particles out.
Right.
But other than, it's just raw and natural and amazing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. When I was a little kid, we had a wild beehive that set up into a big old, I don't know if it was a fir tree, some kind of a pine tree, but it was this big old tree, and the bees set up into it, and they started building this hive, and it looked like, I don't know, it was, I don't know how to describe it, but it was like teardrop segments, and they kept adding on to it. Sorry, I got something in my throat here. They kept adding on to it, and the hive got bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it fell off, crashed down to the ground. And then they picked up and moved to another tree. And but when that hive crashed to the ground, I went in, I'm a kid, and I went in and says, look at all this honey. And I opened this thing up, and of course I did eat plenty of it, but I didn't have, any special anything. And I started chomping on this stuff and realized there's all kinds of little animals in there. And it was a a different experience, but it sure was good. I can remember the joy of that. And so honey or bees in particular, you mentioned the allergies and how important that can be. It's a way to get almost like allergens are these particles that plants have, and we might be sensitive to any number of them. And when they come, like this year, it's been a crazy year in California. The pollen's just been thick. And if you have allergies, this is a year you find out about it, because it's everywhere. And but the thing is, with the bees, they go around and they catch a little teeny bit of this stuff, and then they make the honey that's all got a little bit. When I was a kid, I was allergic to everything except for hogs and newspaper that they tested me for. And they tested me for hundreds of things. And so I went through all these series of shots, and I had a shot that was formulated for spring and summer pollen, and one was for fall pollen, and one was for, I don't know, feathers. And I mean, they had all these different series of shots they gave me, and every week I had to go and get all these shots, and I hated it. But the whole idea of those shots is basically the same thing that honey is. There's a small amount of these things that I was allergic to that they would inject into me so that my body could get used to very small amounts and develop some kind of a tolerance to the allergy. Well, eating a bit of honey is probably a whole lot better than going and getting needles stuck in you. I never liked needles, and I think all these allergy shots was part of it. It was always very unpleasant, if you will.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, and unfortunately, it's not just the thing that they're trying to get your body to get used to. They're jam-packed full of metals and all sorts of things. So you're introducing a lot into your body on an already weakened immune system. So it's pretty rough.
Yeah, I don't know that it helped me as much as it irritated me, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I know that I didn't put my kids through that, and I wouldn't put anybody through that. And I just don't think that it did all the good that it was set to. I suppose the folks that came up with the notion probably had good intentions, but I don't know. Sometimes the cost doesn't outweigh the benefits, in my opinion.
No.
And then, like you said, it's local honey though that really matters, because those bees are capturing little bits of the pollen from the plants that you're actually nearby, or in your region at the very least. So like years ago, when Willow Creek Springs was just a baby, we were a nursery, and we had a local beekeeper that we would get honey from. And local can be regionally. I mean, obviously the closer to home, the better it is for you, but probably the plants that are near you within 100 yards are probably the same plants that are within 20 miles of you. And so likely, if you're within a certain area, it's going to have the most benefit. And we figured, Southern California, there's a lot of the same plants that are in Southern California. So we touted that as sort of a good reason to get our honey. And it was a thriving little thing for a little while. The beekeeper went on and moved, and we just stopped doing it. But there was a point in which I had some beehives, and we had this wild hive that was up in my shed, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, it took over the whole. I mean, the beekeeper that got it out said she'd never seen a hive that big. And one day I come into the shed to go get a tool, and the bee came down and attacked me. And for whatever reason, it stung me really bad. It wasn't like the normal disease. And
that's Trump. That's Trump. That's Trump.
What we got going on over there? Got some animals?
I have a little duck pool that's right close to me, and the ducks have decided it's time to bathe, so they're going a little crazy right now.
Got it. Yeah, ducks are wild critters. We got a couple of ducks too. When they want to go swimming, man, they get at it.
Ducks running the game right now.
Yeah.
That's funny. Anyways, and these bees, they started getting aggressive. That's why we had to get rid of them, and they stung me. And seemed like as a kid, I don't know what happened with bees, but man, they sure seem to pack a bigger sting today than they used to. When I was a kid, I get stung often, and walking around barefoot and stepping on a bee or whatever it was that caused you to get stung. And I just pull the stinger out, put a little baking soda paste on it, and walk away. Never did anything, and man, these things would sting and burn
Yeah.
for a while now. I don't know. I think bees have gotten better at their stinging.
No, I think I would agree with that. I've been just stung once by these guys, but it was an onslaught because I accidentally pinched one and it got my finger, and then they all came at me because of the pheromones that were going off. And
Yeah, they say
yep,
that.
I got pegged about 3 or 4 times.
Yikes! Wow. Well, they say that. I think it's probably the pheromones too, but they say they sense the carbon dioxide. If you get agitated or fearful or start swatting at them, they smell that carbon dioxide and they recognize it as a threat coming at them, and that's when they come chasing off after you. So they say if a bee swarm comes at you, you just gotta calm your damn self down and not overreact, and they'll probably just go,
Oh, yeah.
they're okay. Although in my case, I didn't do anything to provoke them. I just went in to get a tool and they just came down and attacked me. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's that fear piece. Well, and also if you bananas, you're meant to stay away from your hive for a day or so because it smells like the alarm pheromone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me about honey and its value. It's good for a lot of things, but there's a lot of different kinds of honey, and there's honeys that are made of, I learned quite a bit about honey when we were doing our thing, because like apple blossom or citrus blossom has got a really light, fruity tasting honey, and then things like buckwheat or different honeys are different lightness and darkness or strongness. I mean, honey's a very almost like a wine. It's got a lot of different characters it can have in it.
Yep.
Dude over there.
Sorry, my chickens are laying eggs and yelling about it. So
Oh, that's all right. Makes for interesting background, right?
I know it might be a little bit distracting. We got ducks and chickens and all sorts of crazy stuff happening today.
That's funny. Well, my shelf is just holding labels behind me doing nothing.
There we go. They're not moving around too much.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's totally whatever they hit that season. So 2 seasons ago, our bees must have hit like some peach trees because our honey tasted like peaches.
Okay.
This last year's honey was more of a maple syrup taste. It was a lot thicker and richer.
Okay.
So totally what they hit, they can travel within a 3-mile radius. So anything within 3 miles is up for grabs,
Yeah, they one of the craziest honeys that we got was fir honey. And it was from these fir trees up in the mountains. And it was the craziest thing. It was really dark and really thick. And if you ate it, you could taste the pine trees. It was absolutely crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I liked it. Not everybody liked it. It was really, really rich for a lot of people. But yeah, it was. I've never had that before or since. But that was the wildest honey. So the thing too, honey has got all kinds of cool things about it. It's actually a preservative. I mean, honey doesn't really go bad. It'll crystallize if it gets cold, which is bad in its own way, but it doesn't rot. Like it doesn't, there's honey they found from like thousands of years ago, that was still honey. I mean, it'll dry
Yeah.
up over time, but it's incredible in its ability. So you got to think that something that has that capability must have some kind of a value to your body.
Oh, big time. Yeah. So yeah, it's the only food that never goes bad. So it's just, you know, if it crystallizes on you, you can just put the jar in, you know, hot water and it'll liquefy. But yeah, that's great for sleep and for coughs and for, it's full of antioxidants. If you got a sliver, it's the best thing to put on a sliver to pull the sliver right out. I mean, there's lots of benefits.
Yeah, I know that I do a lot of yapping, and so when I talk too much, I'll blow my voice out sometimes. Like I never learned how to talk right, in the sense of when I do public speaking or I just talk a lot, I put a lot of strain on my vocal cords, and I never learned how to do it right. So I'll talk myself hoarse sometimes, and it turns out hot lemonade with a bunch of honey in it is a good soothing throat remedy, and
Oh yeah.
that's definitely a winner when it comes to when I do that, get yapping. Good thing I don't sing, because I probably would only be able to sing every 3 or 4 days. So I know that there's all kinds of different honeys from all around the world, and apparently there's one kind of honey that grows up in the Himalayas. It's off some kind of cliffs, and it's got some sort of a psychedelic experience to it. You got these guys that swing down on vines and they collect it. It's kind of a crazy deal. But what about Manuka honey? That's sort of became kind of popular. Hell, they even have it at Costco now. What's the deal with Manuka honey?
I don't know a lot about it other than it's just the region that it's from, and it's usually
okay.
a little bit more raw, as far as I know.
Okay.
Someone can correct me on that, but I think it's just the region, and that there's just some more antibiotic type properties to it.
Got it. It's just probably
Yeah.
just the plants that it's feeding off of just happens to have some really good stuff. Well, that region must be doing really great right now, because there's a lot of popularity with that particular kind of honey.
Yeah.
So honey is really good for us, but honey is actually food for the bees. So
Oh, yeah.
that's the intent of this stuff. And bees make more than just honey. They make the royal jelly, and they make you can collect the bee pollen sometimes. There's all kinds of good stuff that comes from these bees. But maybe as much as it gives us something, it does a whole lot more than that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So without bees, I mean, there's other pollinators, but I think bees are the best at it. I mean, they really make their living collecting pollen and moving it around from here to there. And, they do more than just get pollen. They catch the pollen on these little fur they have on their legs and stuff. Actually, they'll get all covered in it, but they're out there collecting nectar, and they're drinking the nectar out of these plants, and they catch the pollen as a byproduct, but they go around from flower to flower, and they got pollen drug on from the other flowers, and they leave some behind over here, and then they go get some more nectar and leave some behind. So they're giving and taking all at the same time. And there are a lot of plants that just simply won't create a fruit if it doesn't, or a vegetable if it doesn't get pollinated. And this is one of the reasons why orchards and some farms will actually hire beekeepers to come and bring hives over to their orchards. And but we got problems. We got all kinds of problems with well, they're actually bee problems that they have with us more than anything else. What's going on with the bees?
Yeah, there's a lot. And I mean, there's even studies they're finding out that 5G is disrupting the bees too, just their ability to get back to the hive. And it just kind of, it's throwing a lot of stuff off. Plus all the pesticides that are used on the traditional farming and traditional orchards and things are just harsh on the bees.
Yeah, and apparently there's some kind of a virus too that was going after them. I mean, beehives have been crashing for the last several years that I've heard of, and there's been a number of sources to it, but I think a lot of them have to do with the chemicals that are being used agriculturally, and you know, it's pretty scary because we don't seem to be really changing. You know, we as a world, there's more and more organic farming going on, but I think still the traditional mainstream farming is still the rule. And like, go to Idaho and there's pesticides sprayed all the hell over the place. And,
Oh yeah.
And you know, Idaho's, I'd say, mostly farms, at least the part I've been to. And actually, you go across the nation and there's more farmland in America than anything else. Like, you fly over the country and you just fly over squares and squares and squares. And now that they use these radiuses to water, you see circles. It's all circles everywhere, circles of green. And but unfortunately, with those circles of green come planes that are dumping pesticides and all kinds of crazy crap, and none of that stuff is good for the bees.
Nope.
So I guess, I mean, I'm thinking about like what, you know, there's an awareness about it, but it's just like everything, you know, you hear about it, but who's doing anything? You know, the bee populations keep getting worse and worse, and they're not, you know, they can't stand up and fight for themselves. I mean, other than stinging you, and all that does is piss more people off and, you know, cause more bee deaths. So what do you suggest, or what do you think? I mean, it sounds like what you're doing, having little backyard beekeeping, might be one of the big answers.
I think that's the way. And I mean, also just, you know, knowledge, letting people know. I mean, obviously, you know, you could stand out on the street with a big old sign saying stop traditional farming, but no one's going to listen to you, you know. So you just have to start it from that, you know, kind of a grassroots thing. A lot of homeschool groups, a lot of people are getting tired of that, and so they are starting their own little backyard farms and their little places to be able to get the food, and they know exactly where it's sourced from. And so I think just starting your own stuff and speaking from experience and being, you know, sharing that knowledge, you can only change person to person, you know.
Right.
But it does make a difference.
That's part of what this podcast is all about, is, you know, sharing little tidbits that are in reference to healthy living, but it's not just your healthy living and my healthy living, it's the whole planet and everybody that's here. I mean, you know, if we don't have a planet that can sustain life, we're going to be the first to go. The planet will do fine without us, and it'll recover and it'll regenerate, and some stuff will live and it'll go on and be just fine without us. In fact, it would probably do better without us in some ways. But I frankly enjoy my life here, and I plan on being here for a good long while. And I've got kids and grandkids that I'd sure like to share that with. And so, you know, I think that it's important for people to understand some of the elements of this, you know, not just our health, but I think these bees are such a fundamental part of the health of the world and the health of our food supply. You know, I'm growing more and more food with our Gardens of Hope project, and fortunately where I'm at, I'm kind of at the end of a dirt road and there's not really anything behind me. So we've always had a bunch of wild bees that have done a pretty good job pollinating. I had some bee hives at our place. That beekeeper that took the hive out brought some beehives over, but they didn't take care of them right. So you have to have water in order to tend your hives right. Otherwise, there needs to be water near enough by, because they need water. And they let their water supply go down, and then the bees went and found water all over my property. And they went to the swimming pool, and they went to the leaky faucets, and they went to everywhere, sprinklers, and everywhere there was water. And they became a hardship, and I started getting stung more and more. And it turned out my body didn't like that, and I became more and more reactive. Every time they sting me, I would get a more severe reaction, and I finally had to get them out. It was just you know, I don't know. I know that there's these Africanized bees or whatever, and I don't know. It's probably a defense mechanism. You know, the bees, they don't act as individuals, they act as a hive. And even though different kinds of bees have different jobs, I think that they do everything to protect the hive as a whole. And so as there's more and more problems that are going after them, I think they're just getting more cautious or more aggressive to, you know, try to ensure the safety of that hive.
Yep.
So you said that the winter was they didn't survive the winter. So what goes on? Like, I mean, bees live all over the world. So how do bees make it in the world where things get cold?
I don't know. A lot of the bees hives around the area got just decimated with the cold this year. I mean, we were dipping down into, you know, way into the negatives, and there wasn't, if snow lands on them and kind of shelters the hive a little bit, it does provide some protection. But when I opened up the hive, it was like, the queen might have flown off. She might have taken bees with her, because it looked like bees were born and they just kind of like froze in place.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of an interesting, yeah. So yeah, whereas the year before, we lost our hive to robber bees that came during a really warm spell in December. We hit about 60 degrees in December, and then robber bees or wasps went in to steal honey and gave mites to the bees. And so the mite population they decimated the bees, just killed them all. So.
Wow. Yikes. Well, it's a tough world out there. And the thing, you know, it's so funny. Everybody's like, oh, nature's so sweet and wonderful, but nature's actually pretty mean and hungry. And everything in nature is always trying to survive, and that generally means somebody gets eaten. And so, well, listen, we are out of time again. These conversations go by so quickly. I am really interested to hear about your electroculture. You started telling me about it. And why don't you give us a quick update? Maybe next time we do this, we can do it from where your electroculture is. We could see it.
Yeah, totally. No, the strawberries was the first one that I put it in, and they're probably, oh gosh, they're 10 times bigger than they were when we put that rod in the ground or the little antenna.
Nice.
I put it in a couple of my herb pots that I thought that my herbs had not survived, were not coming back, and they are little sprouts just popping up all over the place. So
nice.
Whatever it's doing, it's a lot better than it was last year, and things are just getting huge, starting to come into bloom. So super excited.
Well, I've been studying a little bit more about it, and it turns out there's a lot of different ways people do it. And there's different configurations of you know, the way that they wrap the wire, the way the wire goes, putting the wire on a wooden stake, or just the wire up by itself, all different things. So I'm testing out some different ways of doing it. I'm gonna put some more time and energy into that as well. I'm actually gonna wrap a palm tree with a big old coil and see if that doesn't do some good on a bigger scale too. So I'm interested in seeing what it's doing. I got so many things going on right now. I haven't put enough energy into really looking at that by itself. The carrots that I planted, the original electroculture stake in the beach, they got devastated by squirrels, which had nothing to do with the electroculture, and they're recovering from that, but the squirrels just wrecked them. So I had to go and catch a bunch of squirrels and relocate them. So, well, Erin, like I said, I try to keep these shows around a half an hour. They get longer than people's attention span, and as interesting as squirrels
Yeah.
and bees are, I'm excited because you are starting to get a little following going. So we've already published 2 episodes that you've done, and there's more coming. And I'm noticing that even before I send a newsletter out, we're getting people hopping on and listening. So this is
Oh,
great,
awesome.
and that's what we were hoping for. Why don't you send us out with the parting shot?
All right. Yeah, you guys check out my website, email me, text me, whatever, with questions about anything I can do to help you stay healthy on your journey.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Thank you, Erin. And this has been the Healthy Living Podcast, brought to you by Willow Creek Springs. And we will talk to you next time.